Welcome to the second in a row of the Coaching Collaboration Podcast with Dan Sullivan and Mark O'Donnell and myself, Kelly Knight. Hey, guys.
Hey.
How are you? So we are here today to talk about a lot of different exciting topics, but the first one that I really wanted to start off with, I am quarterbacking this particular podcast, is Dan, I've always marveled at how you take setbacks on your entrepreneurial journey and you use them to your advantage. You use it as fuel to come up with great entrepreneurial ideas and tools that help us all to become better at what we do. How'd you come up with that? What was the impetus of it? What's inspired you to create the experience transformer tool that I now use and Mark and I both use at EOS Worldwide?
Mhm. Yeah, that was really interesting. I think it was 1998. So we'd been in business about 10 years and we were just opening London, or having workshops in London. And we piggybacked it with a speaking engagement I had with a financial services company. And so we flew over with a daytime flight, which we don't do anymore. We do nighttime. But we got there and we were sort of tired. And then I had to speak in the same hotel where we were staying. And I had double duty because I was giving the speech and we were, trying to knock do a kickoff for, the program and strategic coach program in London. And then I had the presentation in the morning, which was basically a marketing presentation. And I had my my Mac, portable MacBook with it. And on that book, on my computer, I had the full script of a book that had to be sent to the printer next Friday. So this was one Friday, and that was the next Friday. And being who I am, I didn't have any backup for it. So I gave my talk using the computer, came back, we went to lunch. So I just came in the hotel door and I took the computer and just put it on a sort of a stand that was inside the door. We went back, we went out to lunch, came back, and the door was kicked in, like the handle of the door was just missing. And we walked in, the computer's gone. Babs had money. I had money in the room. We had jewelry and none of it was taken. They just took the Mac. So we notified the management of what had just happened in their hotel. And we had two London bobbies with their cab. It came in and they said, one of them said, where do you think? And they said, we think this is off to Russia. There's been a rash of computer. And Macs were, a big deal in the 1990s. So it was a really big computer. And so then, they said, look, it's gone. We'll report it, but there's no chance of getting it. It's an organized gang. The way they broke in the door is an organized gang type of thing. And the management of the hotel gave us no satisfaction at all whatsoever. That's just a sub theme. The main theme of it is that we then had to go out for dinner with clients, and I had to be a happy, talkative host, which I was. And we got back afterwards, and Babs was just exhausted. And I wasn't sleeping at all. I said, how am I going to rewrite this book for next Friday? I have no backup for it. And we had a huge deadline. It was a big, important thing that we get this book organized. So I'm sitting there in the middle of the night and I say, I've got absolutely no energy for rewriting this book. And I was sitting there. But what if I wrote an entirely new book between now and Friday? And all of a sudden I got really excited. Well, I'm really excited about the book. And it's so funny. And so my tech guy was with me, and he had a duplicate computer, and he had the software for writing a book. And we just sat there and for over about a 3 or 4 hour period on Saturday morning. We just sketched out a whole new book and everything else. And then what I discovered, if you're going to do a really rush project, it's really good to do it from London because you're 5 hours ahead of your own office.
Right.
So this is just a
Buy you
tip.
some extra
You
time.
got a really good project. You're in the States or in Canada, and you have to do a really good project and send it back to your team. Go to London to do it because you got 5 hours work before they open up. Anyway, next Friday, the final, the disc went over, a lot
Mhm.
harder in those days,
Hmm.
and the book came out, and it was a much better book. So I was thinking about this experience, and I says, when something really negative happens, you have a great deal of energy, but it's the wrong kind of energy. But if you can do a flip and you can take all that energy and you can't repair the past, but what you can do is create a new future. So I called it the negativity transformer when it first came out. When you have something negative happen to you, then if you really focus at the moment and you say, okay, this is a really big opportunity because I have all this energy, but I got to flip it really fast because if you wait a day, the energy is gone. And, you just have the negativity, but you don't have the energy anymore. So that's where I got the idea. And then I created a new tool and I had people identify negative experiences. And then basically, for those who are watching or listening, the whole trick of it is it's got 3 columns and you write down everything that worked about the situation. And it's hard to do, but but one of the things that came to me when I was doing the actual book is I didn't really like this book.
That was the hidden secret
Yeah, right.
behind this was not good anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
like
a
it's
that's
like I didn't really like her when I first met her. And the day you're divorcing her, and so
Right.
which is also
wow.
another true story.
Yep.
Well, what
Yeah,
that
so,
makes
so the big
what
thing is the flip, is to do the flip really fast. That's the real key to it.
and that just makes me think of, Dan, how much of the themes of what you do are around that. I mean, think of gap and gain, right? It's getting into the gain and getting out of the gap. There's the bother tool, which I actually really like. It's one of those hidden tools that doesn't get talked about that often, but I will tell you how many of those I filled out. It really transforms thinking. And so I just love this is probably one of my favorite tools is the
Mhm.
experience transformer. And actually, I'm calling it the experience transformer experience because it's actually an experience to go through it
Mhm.
and with your teams too. So, Mark, we've had a lot of things going on at EUS Worldwide, and we've certainly used this tool often enough. I'd love for you to talk about a couple examples, one personal, just because I think we can apply this to our personal lives as much as we can our entrepreneurial experience, but then also one that we've done here at EOS and how has it helped us to think differently and also to really get the energy of our teamwork together to move forward better and stronger for the 4 Cs.
Yeah. Uh, the experience transformer, when I first used it more than 10 years ago, I was traveling quite a bit and I was like, this is kind of a terrible experience. It was just bad. I mean, just couldn't be worse. So I got an assistant for the first time. It's not something I used or I had that kind of teamwork before. And so I traveled and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring out the experience transformers, a new tool I learned, and I'm going to document the whole thing. So, what worked about it, what didn't work about it, what were all the improvements that would make a great experience for that travel, and then updating processes. And at the time, I was like, a process for travel? Why would I have a process for traveling? Like you just travel, you just go do it. So that actually was a pretty epiphany for me in itself that I should have a process to do these types of things that someone else can do that I can enter into teamwork by documenting it. So I did that over quite a few quarters. every time I traveled, I filled out an experience transformer. And it's funny, I was going to coach in Toronto actually, and I was going from Philadelphia because there was a short time where coach was in Philadelphia, and I was leaving to go to 10X from a signature program in Philadelphia to a 10X in Toronto. So I was traveling with other coach members, and he went to the Philadelphia airport with me, and he was like, "You have a backstage pass to the airport. How is this even possible? It's like there's no hassle, friction free, beautiful experience the entire time. How did you create this process?" I was like, "I've just been obsessed with the experience transformer for the last few quarters, and it creates such a great experience for me in any capacity." And for us at EOS, we've have taken that. I think it's a discipline. I think it's a habit that you get into that creates a bigger, better future for not only yourself, but for your team members. And so that's really been ingrained in what we do here at EOS. Every time we do a call with implementers, a town hall, a quarterly collaborative exchange, any event that we have, we do an after action report basically, right? And so what worked, what didn't, knowing what we know now, what would we do differently? And then what are the process updates that we're going to take into consideration, and which processes we get pretty detailed in how we're going to make those updates. And that just creates a world where everything gets better and better and better over time. And when you can't fill out an experience transformer after an experience, it kind of makes you a little worried. Like, am I getting lazy? Am I getting complacent? Nothing can be this good, right? Like, who's holding back? There's got to be something in there. You kind of get excited it's not even negativity anymore. You're just totally living in gain. And maybe you go into the gap for a split second, but everything gets better and better where you just got very little to complain about.
And I love that about our team, that they're very hungry naturally. I mean, I think based on our core values and the way that we hire, those that are shared vision aligned with where we're going are excited about the opportunity to actually use an experience transformer in advance of doing something. So it can be used obviously after the fact to sort of reconcile and reflect on how it actually went. But the kind of really neat thing is to turn it around and say, what would we really be proud of at the end of the day, whether it's a big conference or whether it's something new that we're launching. And so I think that's also really important, is to look at it from both perspectives, in advance of and in sort of after the fact. And that's a different way to take a take on it. But it's a cultural thing, right? Because we're getting human energy all aligned. That's what EOS does. And so coach tools are very complementary to what we use at EOS. So Dan, for you, how do you see, working with entrepreneurs all the time, them using this tool to get progress, to gain progress, not just for themselves, but their teams, and also check writers, those that they serve?
Yeah, well, I just as an individual, I just have a couple reminders or rules about dealing with the world. Okay. And the first one is to recognize when you're born that the world was not designed for you. It wasn't designed with you in mind. So there's got to be some negotiation along the way if you're going to have a happy life. The other thing is that you don't really have control over the world, but you do have control, or you can choose to have control over your response to what happens. Okay. So, what I noticed, generally speaking, I remember back in 1978, August 15th, I was divorced in the morning and bankrupt in the afternoon. I had two, you know, you know, even then I was good at time management, And I always say I arranged for the divorce in the morning so I could keep my credit card for a little bit of a celebration at lunchtime before
Before you had to hand it in.
credit card. And one of the things I noticed, I mean, these are two big hits. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't very funny at the time. And now I just see both of them as extreme market research, and
That's right.
and but I remember, I think it happened on a Thursday, and on Saturday I just walked to a restaurant, favorite restaurant for breakfast. Nice day, beautiful day in August, and I noticed that not many people on the street were bothered about my divorce and bankruptcy. Waiters
Nope.
at
Definitely no.
nobody. And the other thing I noticed over about the next 3 or 4 months, people gave you a lot of time on your own to deal with this. They didn't really bother with you too much. They didn't have parties and say, Dan, we're having about 30 people over, and we'd just like you to come over and talk about your divorce and bankruptcy. You know, they were very, very respectful of my privacy. And but what I came to, and those are, I mean, probably the low point of my life, that period and the period after it. And I began to realize that I just wasn't taking responsibility for what was happening to me, you know. And I said, I can go 2 ways. I can let this knock me down forever,
Mhm.
or I can say, this is the turning point of my life. Okay. And I didn't have the experience transformer there. It would have helped, but I didn't have it. But that's a hit. You just a hit. So what are you going to do with the hit? Same thing happened with COVID. I remember 13th of March, 2020. I'd noticed that the workshops were only half filled that week. And then afterwards, we were in Chicago. Babs and I were in Chicago, and she came and she said, "We're going to have to shut down the program until June. We can't do any workshops over the next quarter." And so I was flying home that night, and I was really tired, and I said, "Zoom. We're going to
Mhm.
go to Zoom. We're going to redo the entire program and put it into Zoom framework. And so either going to come back to in-person workshops in June, or we're going to just switch over to Zoom." And it was so funny because I was really proud of myself that there was about an hour when I was negative, and then within the next hour, I just switched over. And
Mm,
I said, good.
amazing.
2 years ago, we had a major flood, water main in our building here in Toronto, and it wiped out my recording studios, our tech team, all of our supplies and everything. And one of my team members called us and said, we just had a flood. We can't use the building. The city has already said we got to bring inspectors in. You may not be able to use this building." And I said, "We get to have new recording studios." I said, I want new recording studios. We can do it right away.
Yeah, that's right.
So the big thing is that the responses, these fairly recent responses, COVID and the flood, indicates just the impact of doing experience transformer. You don't even give yourself time to spend any time with the negativity. You just flip. And all entrepreneurs that I've seen are really successful have really worked on that ability over the years, just to whoop. Okay.
Just move on
Right.
and go
That's right.
forward.
Your
And
team is taking their cues from you, and you've got to give them a demonstration that they got to switch really fast.
it
Yeah.
was really fun to watch you, Dan, during that period of time because, you either saw those during COVID, as an example, freeze up and not really know what to do, or you saw those really take action and hit the gas pedal. And what I thought was really great about watching it unfold is at every step, you were confident, you had the clarity, you had all that it took, and you were leading your team. Never once did I see the strategic coach team not feel comfortable really with being uncomfortable. And I think that does come from the leadership and what we see by being able to take action. And so that this tool, I think, is very helpful that way. An example I can think of, Mark, that really helped us was during the franchise transition. So we
Yeah.
started, Mark, back with the membership model. essentially everything that Gino Wickman and Don Tinney had started way back in the day, 2008. But we came to a kind of pivotal point where we needed to make a shift in the business model. And it required us doing a complete overhaul of our business and becoming a franchise. But we wanted to do things a little differently, right? We didn't want to do the traditional franchise route. Share a little bit about how we used really strategic coach tools, but also especially the transformer to consider how do we do it in a way that honors what Gino and Don had always created. It wasn't different. It really put I like to think of it as putting bubble wrap around what they had created all those years ago. How did we do that?
Yeah, and speaking of sort of the flip, we kind of had this crossroads moment. We had a little bit of a catalyst to say, do we need to become a franchise or not? And we pushed against it at first for a grand total of 5 minutes, probably. And we're like, you know what? This is an opportunity to protect our intellectual property, to protect what Gino and Don had built in perpetuity. It's an opportunity to consolidate our brand, because at that time we represented 738 different EOS implementer brands in the market. So we weren't able to effectively perpetuate what EOS is into the world. If we were to try, it gets diffused very quickly because of all the noise around the other brands. So we use that as an opportunity to consolidate that down to one EOS worldwide brand. And we also, most people take 18, 24 months at least at a minimum to become a franchise. And we'd said, we're going to do this quickly. We're going to do it as fast as we can, because we want that energy, that positive energy, to just carry us forward through the transition. We know we're probably going to lose some folks who don't want to be a franchisee, but we're not really a franchise. We're really a membership model. We don't take percentage of revenue. We don't have territories. And so we wanted to be our version of a franchise. And we made that switch, and the impact was immediate. The people, it turns out, who weren't core values fits just left the community almost immediately.
So, Mark, we've lost your picture.
Yeah, my camera just turned off, so who knows why that
is. You're back.
New camera.
Yeah. Just start back where I'm just trying to think when you went, the screen went dark.
Yeah, let's see if I can turn that back on. It happened twice now in a very short amount of time.
Just went off. Just went off.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll use this camera. It's not as good, but
okay. So what worked about that situation? What didn't work about that situation? What we did not. But I think if you just go back and you talked, Kelly, where he was.
I would just pick up from where you were talking about protecting and preserving what Gino and Don had created. Start back there.
Yeah. So we become a franchise. We're a unique franchise, and we are protecting our intellectual property. We're consolidating our brand, taking total advantage of what could have been seen as a very negative, big legal expense and paperwork exercise. It created a refining moment for our community where everyone had to re-buy in to our core values. And so all of those things worked really, really well. Now, there's some things that didn't work, and we were a little bit surprised of. As an example, now we had to manage hundreds and hundreds of email addresses we didn't have to manage before, and we had to protect data in new ways. But even those things, if we ran an experience transformer over top of those, we would come to the realization that that's actually very positive, that it gives us a lot of opportunity to help more entrepreneurs, to help more implementers get what they want from their businesses. So it's really been a fantastic transition. And of course, we were able to protect our intellectual property. We've had a lot, just like Coach, people taking IP, claiming it as their own, modifying it. And that still happens, but now it has to happen like, in the underground world.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
So they
I
can't
think
market it.
I was fairly conscious of what was happening because a number of the people who are no longer with you approached me and said, can we have sort of the collaboration you've had with EOS? Can you have it with us instead? And
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I said, nah, I said, I'm a one master dog. I just,
yes, we are appreciative of your monogamy, Dan,
yeah,
as it
Yes,
relates
I'm
to
yes.
really
that.
into
We
my
definitely are.
yeah.
But the other thing too, Mark, which was an unintended benefit, we
Yeah.
maybe didn't predict because we were dealing with brass tacks of really what we needed to do, but it's that it was a unifying experience amongst all of the implementers and EOS worldwide. And it's a testament to how really great teamwork does multiply results and multiply the impact that we're able to make together collectively as a community, because that's how we refer to ourselves, as an implementer community that's serving the world. So
Mm-hmm.
not having those 780 some odd individual brands unifying under one with a common purpose, that we talk about with our vision traction organizer, that was a really, I think, pivotal moment for our expansion and our growth, because
Yeah.
we were doing it together.
Everybody's got the same tattoo.
Everyone
Yes.
has the same tattoo for
Everybody,
sure.
everybody's got the secret handshake, it's
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
and I will say that there was quite a few
From an outside
implementers.
standpoint, it was very gutsy,
Yeah.
from I thought it was just a very gutsy move because I mean, uh you had to really focus on what you're going to gain, not what you're going to lose.
Right.
That's right. And they're really just, we didn't, as Mark said, it was something that we did relatively quickly. It wasn't something that we did a bunch of research and then assessed it and had committees. It was really, this is what we're going to do, and here's why we're going to do it. And ultimately, that was a launch pad for our growth. So we're just hugely grateful for 82% of implementers who were with us at the time actually made that leap, which was huge. It was a leap of faith on their part, not knowing. Now, one of the things that we did that I think did work in hindsight is that we were an unfranchised franchise, meaning we intentionally have no royalties. We intentionally don't have territories. So, what do entrepreneurs do? We like to do things our own way, and sometimes oppositionally, defiantly, to how others might
Oh,
do it. But we decided we were going to do it a little differently.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
because I remember one of our clients for a long time was he supplied backstage backup for franchise organizations. So he had at one time around 150 um, actual franchise organizations that he was providing backstage coordination. There was 80% of it is the same for all franchises, and he supplied the 80%. And I remember talking to him about that, and he said, it's adversarial almost from the beginning with most uh, franchise organizations, because because people want the sort of corporate identity, but they also want to do it their way, not according to one rule. So the fact that you have not had that adversarial relationship, I think, is testimony to one, how you structured it, but how you communicated it.
mm, yeah, and I think Mark and I too, along with our community, we really value those four freedoms. Time, money, relationship, and purpose. And so keeping that central was really important, in that we didn't add anything that would restrict those freedoms. And we looked for ways that we could enhance those freedoms. And so I think that's always important as we're looking at those, check writers, is how can we just enhance and create more value, not restricting the capabilities, for them to go do other things even outside of being an EOS implementer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, there's that clarifying moment of the culture of the community because of that re-opt in, doubling down on core values. Implementers who were going to retire decided, you know what, this is much more fun because I'm surrounded by more people who share my core values. We've got the same tattoo. and they've extended at least 3 to 5 years of time that they're actively working with clients. We created a new program that we call Emeritus Implementer because the volume, they wanted to go a little bit lower, but they want to stay connected. And so that kind of retirement concept starts to melt away within the community because it's a lifetime sentence, if you will, to be an entrepreneur and be an entrepreneurial helper, servant.
And,
Yeah.
and I've wondered this too, Dan. We've talked a lot about the business model of strategic coach and how that's evolved over time. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about when you were designing Free Zone. You had Signature program, the 10X program, then you added Free Zone, and you were also considering moving yourself through those different phases. So ultimately, you were sitting and really facilitating and coaching in the Free Zone. How did you use the Experience Transformer or maybe other tools to really bring the team with you? Because this was a company vision. You were bringing everybody with you to believe in that vision, that that was the right way to kind of evolve your coaching program. How'd that work?
Yeah, well, when we started, 1989 is the start date, and first 5 years, I'm the only coach, and we knew that we had hit a ceiling. Okay, and I was, still selling time, but I was just doing it with workshops rather than individual clients. So we made an attempt around maybe 92 to have licensed coaches. And I did a very, very bad job of designing the model, and they were the wrong people. And and it got very, very messy. And I said, okay. And what we did is that they had clients, and we basically paid them for the clients, and we brought the clients into the program, and I was coaching them again. So I said, we're never going to grow if I'm the only coach. So in '95 we started our first coach, and it was very successful. But they weren't licensed coaches, and they were clients who just had a knack for coaching, and we have a really good way of checking that out. We do a lot of due diligence on them. And the other thing is, it's a longer relationship. It takes about 2 or 3 years of us talking back and forth, because we want proof from, their referrals that they just love coaching. And the key to being a great coach is that your greatest pleasure is in other people's success.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
key indicator of whether you're a great coach, besides having good communication skills. And now we have 17 besides me. But I'll tell you the difference it make. In 1994, I did 144 workshop days that year.
Wow.
A lot.
It's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
days.
a lot. Okay. And this year we're doing 600 workshop days, and I'm doing 12 of them.
Wow.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty good numbers to do
Hmm.
it. But then when we had coaches, we were all still coaching the same program. And what I was noticing is that there's always a 10 or 20% of your clients who are lead dogs, and they're running ahead of the others. So I came up with this idea that I now have the basis for a higher program than the main program. We didn't have a name for it. It was just the program. And I created the 10 times program. Okay. And these are people where the focus is on growing your business 10 times. And the way I do that, I have a very novel way of doing that. I announced to the team, it's February, and I just want you to know that by January 1st, I'm not coaching this program anymore. That's how I delegate. I just said, I don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to find some way of handling. And then I went out and I started saying, people, on January 1st, I'm starting a brand new program. and these are the requirements that we're looking for. And I filled 2 workshops within about 2 weeks. I just filled it, and I said, and it's going to be twice as much money, and this is it. And I did that. I did that with 10 times, and then I did it with Free Zone. So I just make an announcement to the team. I just want to let you know after this date, I'm not doing these workshops. Now, I said, I'm not really good at knowing how to handle this whole thing, so it's on you to make it. I just create a vacuum and let
Right.
other
Nature
people.
abhors the vacuum.
So that's really how we've done it. And 3 is it. I think 3 really works. And the other thing is we were very flexible of how long people had to spend in one program. And we have a rule that when you come into the first program, which we call the signature program, you got to do 4 workshops.
Mm-hmm.
If at the end of 4 workshops, you want to jump to the 10 times workshop, you can do that. Once you get to the 10 times workshop, you do 4 workshops and you decide if you want to be in Free Zone. And there's other considerations too. That means that a person starting their first workshop, they do 1 year, they make a jump to the next level. They do 1 year and they jump, and they get to have Dan as their coach. And so, but the other great advantage that we acquired with COVID is that we can do smaller 2-hour workshops using Zoom. Zoom is one of the great breakthroughs of our really in our 35 years. Zoom has been one of the really
Mm-hmm.
great breakthroughs.
Yeah,
What I
for
love
sure.
too about the programming is as part of Free Zone, we also can participate in 10X and signature programs. So through those, golden ticket workshops, I think the layering of that is really super supportive for those who really want to go all in on coach and get the experience with the collaborating to a
We
much
have
higher
a
degree.
Free Zone member, Chad Jenkins. You've met Chad, I think,
Oh
Mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad does all 3 Free Zone workshops, and he probably, I would say easily within a quarter, probably does 10, 12 workshops. 10, 12
And
workshops.
it really shows. In fact, Mark and I were just on the phone with Chad not long ago, but it really shows the depth of his understanding in being such a collaborative member within Coach, how he really uniquely understands the needs, the DOS, the dangers, opportunities, and strengths of this community at Coach. So that investment of time really pays itself
Yeah,
forward.
he's Chad. I have a number of clients who are just almost like between workshop coaches for the other members of the program. I mean, they just do so much work for us,
It's great. So I've got one concluding question for each of you. So I'd love to know, when using the Experience Transformer, how does it help us to bring our teams along for a bigger, brighter future? Mark, you want to go first?
Sure. And I think, Dan, you nailed it earlier with they're all watching. All of our team members are watching our energy. And if we're negative, if we sit in our own stink for a little bit too long, it starts to spread. And it just has that discipline, that habitual idea that nothing is, number one, nothing is ever going to be perfect. And we expect it to not be perfect. And that actually leads to the next level of breakthrough. And when the teams see you doing that, and then they start to practice that themselves, you end up with a growing level of teamwork in a growing company where it's that mindset. You really have a team that can do anything at that point in time.
Yeah, I think I make a really sharp distinction between being in control and being in charge. Okay. And control means that you're managing what exists right now. Being in charge means that you're creating a new higher future for your team. And charge also has the electricity analogy. that my job is to give direction and electricity to the company. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you ever have the experience when the electricity goes out?
Yes.
Just recently, actually, Dan, it turns out.
Yeah. So my feeling is we can't have any breaks in power in this. So and I'm very aware of what you just said, Mark, that you're being watched all the time, and you're being watched by a lot of different individuals. And therefore you got to be on your best behavior all the time, and that's a privilege. That's not a burden. That's a privilege that because it keeps your life real simple, that it's how you show up that really makes a difference. And so, but the other thing is, it's a great life skill, the experience transformer. The first time I tried it out in a workshop, I said, I want you to identify an experience from your teenage years. Okay. And I said, teenage years have a lot of trouble. There's just a lot of stuff, even in even in the 1950s and 1960s, there was, there's a lot of conflicting forces to be a teenager. And I said, so I want you to identify the experience. And now I want you, because you're looking back from the future, I want you to just identify 5 things that were really, really good about that experience. And they said, well, there was nothing. And I should say here that I said, identify experience that when you remember it, it still irks you. Okay. So it's 40 years ago, but it still irks me. And I have them. So I go through the stages of the experience transfer, what worked about this. And it takes them a little bit of time. And I said, just if it didn't happen to you and you were observing what happened to you as a result of that experience, then what would you say was good about that? And I remember one say, well, I didn't marry her. Missed a bullet.
Yeah.
So I get it down. I said, okay, now say everything that didn't work about that. And it's easy to focus and really engage fully with what didn't work if they've got the confidence of what did work. Okay. And then they get to the end. I says, now, in the future, when you have another experience like that, what did you learn about from what did work and what didn't work that you would do it differently? Okay. And so we got to the end of it and we had a discussion about it. And I said, now, how many of you that experience still irks you? And they said, no, it's gone. And I said, I prove a point that your brain hangs on to any experience where you didn't get the lesson. And the moment you get the lesson, there's no more pain.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really true. That's really true.
Yep.
Awesome insights from both of you. And it
Thanks
really
a
is
lot.
just,
Kelly, great
yes,
time.
thank you. It was just great. And listen, great teamwork.
I mean, it's such a great tool to talk about.
Well, it really is. And I think that, centering the thinking around the experience transformer and how teamwork, it really channels teamwork and human energy towards success and meeting. If we only take the time to slow down to think about our thinking. So this has been great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mark. What a fun time.
Thank you.